Hello again, guys. This is Fede. So, as I said, I'm doing a double feature today. Well, for me, I'm doing a video back to back, two videos. So, I just finished recording the BookTube new tag. I hope that's up by now. So, yeah, I'm just going to do a quick wrap up for last month and my TBR for September. Yeah, so let's just get into it. Let's just get it done, and let's start with the wrap up. I read a total of one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight books last month. So that's around average, I will say. I read like six, seven, eight books a month, and that really depends on the books that I choose to read. For example, if I choose really big books, I read less books, but I read more pages. So yeah, let's go one by one. The first book that I want to mention that I read for the first time ever, it is The Name of the Wind, Patrick Rothfuss. A lot of people already know about this. This is a great. I love this book. I thought I wouldn't like it that much. I don't know why. Maybe because it was like a school setting and university and sort of. I don't know. I thought this will be like a YA story, which it is a little bit, but that's not really the center of the story. So here we follow. I don't know if I should explain the plot of this. I feel like everybody knows this book. We follow Quoth, or however you said the name of the protagonist. But yeah, he goes to the university. He has a very rough childhood, but he gets in. And he's learning all the crafts and everything there in the university. And I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, this book just follows this guy and his relationships with his friends, and love interest and enemies, and how the world functions and the university functions. That's really weird, but really great. And just the prose of this book, it's really great. I mean, in one part of the book, I don't know who says that, but a character says that there are seven words to for a, if you say these seven words, a woman will fall in love with you instantly, like that. So whenever that's brought up anywhere in the book, a lot of phrases are seven words phrases. So that's cool. That's neat. The author pay attention to that. I know there's a bit of hate surrounding this author because he hasn't finished the, the, the trilogy. This will be a trilogy. There is this one, The Name of the Wind, and then there is the Wise Man's Fear, and that's it. Only two novels. There's a novella, and yeah, but something happened there with the author, and a charity campaign that he did that he didn't deliver. Some like he was supposed to read a chapter from the new book, and he never did that, and that was years ago. So, but I don't really care about that. This is a good story. Everyone should read this story. This is I don't do the star ratings, but yeah, this is I totally recommend this book. This is great. This is great stuff. Now the second book that I read this last month is I'm going to put it here because I read it on Kindle. That was Shift by Hugh. Howey, is that how you say the last name? I don't know, but that's the second book in the Silo trilogy. The first one is Wool. The second one is this one, Shift, and there's a third one, Dust. And yeah, the second book, Shift, that explains everything of how the world, this silos were created and what were there for and why they are working the way they are and who's controlling them. So yeah, they just explain everything, and it's really great. It's a great read. It felt like a good compliment to complement to the first one, because it's not. I mean, it's related to the first one, obviously, because it's the same world, but the characters from the first book show up here at the end almost. So this is more about the creation of the silos and the world itself. So yeah, it's a pretty good read as well. You should read it. Well, you should read the first one and then this one, obviously. So the next book that I read was a reread for me, and that is a classic, Watchmen, by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, the great Gibbons. So, yeah, that's my dog. Now, Watchmen. What can I say? This is a classic. Everyone should read this. This is an old copy of mine that I got when I was a kid. I got this as a kid, as a gift, and I wasn't able to read it at the time. Let me see the year actually. I know they reprint this every year, but this one is actually don't know. This is from 2005. God damn. I got this as a kid. So 2005, I was like 9 at that time. And an uncle of mine, he didn't know what this was about. He just saw a comic and brought it to me. So yeah, I wasn't able to read it at the time. I didn't understand it. I got bored at like the first 5-10 pages when I was a kid. But I left it there, and I read it when I was a teenager, when I was in high school, and I loved it, obviously. So yeah, a quick reread of Watchmen this month. I don't know. I had like 3-4 years that since the last time I read it, and the next book that I read this month, it was another classic. This is from Philip K. Dick, Scanner Darkly. So here, the premise is really good. The premise of the book, you know, Philip K. Dick has had, rest in peace, had great ideas, great setups. So here, this is obviously a satire, where a policeman is undercover. So he has an undercover mission. He has another name when he's undercover, and all of that, just the classics. But whenever he's undercover, he uses this drug that's on the streets, and makes you have like a double personality, and that's very that's great for like an undercover job, right? The problem is that when he's a cop, a detective, when he's not on the drug, he's following this drug dealer, right? And when he's on the drug, undercover, he is the drug dealer. So he's chasing himself. And that's not a spoiler, that's on the blurb. So that's the premise. And it has some great quotes in it, man. I need to tell you. But I wrote here, this is like the Dare version of Philip K. Dick. So, yeah, this is great. It's just a classic. Philip K. Dick classic. You can go wrong with that. And then I read a great book, which is I Heard You Paint Houses. I got the movie version. Usually I'm not okay with these versions. Whenever they put the poster of the adaptation on the cover, but here, come on, you got Pesci, De Niro, and Pacino, and the movie's great, and the book is great. So I'm not mad about this. The only thing that I highlighted here was a phrase that they say in the movie, which if you love the movie as much as I did, you will remember this. It's when De Niro and Pesci are eating the first time they meet at the restaurant, and they say, "C'è successo, successo, fuck it." That's what they say in the movie, but here they say, "What will be, will be." And of course, Pesci added the "fuck it" part. You know who it is. But yeah, this is just a great book, man, and it has a lot of pictures about the Irishman, and his life in the mafia. And you know, they put him in the here he is at the war when he was at the war. This was a friend that he had that died over there in Italy, and yeah, this is just great. This is a list that Giuliani had, and they were all getting the RICO Act, and the Irishman was the only one of them that wasn't Italian, so he was deep in there. So yeah, this is just the story of the Irishman. Obviously, you get more details here than in the movie, but yeah, this is great. This is great stuff, and I totally recommend it. I actually got this from a used bookstore, and I only paid $1.99. Can you believe that? You believe I paid only $1.99 for this? I don't know. And the next one I read, it was an audiobook. I don't really read a lot of our audiobooks. I usually do those when I'm at the gym. So I go 2 hours every day at the gym. I go 2 hours over there and I try to put on an audiobook. So usually those are pretty light reads for me because I don't need to pay a lot of attention to them. I do pay attention to the books, but you know what I mean. So what I read there this last month was "I'm Glad My Mom Died" by Jeanette, and it was great. That was great. It was fucking. It was it was a trip. She had a crazy mother. I mean, when I first heard the title of that book, I was like, man, how can you say that, bro? How can you treat your mother like that? Like say that about her. And once I read it, once I finished it, I was like, I understand. I understand now. Yeah, she's a crazy woman. She was a crazy woman. And next, also I read it on Kindle. It's Skysworn, which is book 4 of the Cradle series by Wight. And yeah, this is the 4th volume. Cradle, that's a progressive fantasy story, one of the most like popular ones. And I don't know, I really didn't like this book that much. And this series is like 12 books, but they're really short. And at this point, after reading the 3rd and now the 4th volume, I really don't know if I will continue with it. I know that a lot of people like it, but I'm just not feeling it. It's just, it feels like I don't want to say bad things about it, but it feels like a generic anime or something. And I don't really watch anime. I don't like it. I do read manga sometimes, Junji Ito, stuff like that. That don't really require like for you to read like 500 volumes just to finish a story. So yeah, Cradle Volume 4. I don't know. I didn't like it that much. A good progressive fantasy that you can check out is one that I finished like 2 months ago. It was what was the name? I just had it. It was Mother of Learning. Gosh, that's 4 books. That's great progression fantasy. It's a loop like Groundhog Day, but instead of a day, take a month. And it's a loop story, progression fantasy. It's great. And it's a web novel. It was a web novel as well, so you can read it free. But I read it on Kindle. So yeah, Cradle Volume 4. Didn't like it that much. Now the last book that I read last month was a great closure to the month. It was a beautiful book. I mean, it's horrible the things that happen in it. It's Lapvona by Ottessa Moshfegh. I don't really know. But yeah, this was recommended to me by a friend, and she said, "You're gonna love this book." Because she knows that I like some grim dark in my story, some darkness to humanity. But man, this book, alright, this is the setup, the context for this story is in the Middle Ages, right? And we follow the protagonist, which is like a 13-year-old boy who's deformed, like he has some issues with his back, and he's just like he's poor. He's not the son of a king or anything like that. His father hates him because his father his father told him that his mother died because of him when she gave birth to the protagonist. I believe his name was Marek or Marek, something like that. Marek, it's Marek. So yeah, man. But the things that happen in this book, I really don't want to spoil anything. It's just the life in the Middle Ages and how rough it was, and how and this is also a comment on today's society. I mean, this book was written during the pandemic, and you can certainly tell some of these themes here. I mean, this is totally a comment in today for today's society. Just the opening line. It's not even the opening line. The I don't know how to say that in English. Like the phrase that opens the book before the actual text. It's from a song, from a Demi Lovato song. So why will you open with that? With a modern artist and a song. And it's a good line. It says, "I feel stupid when I pray," which fits the theme of the book. But Demi Lovato? I mean, that had to be deliberate, to do a comment on today's society. This is a great book, man. Just read it. And it's really short. It's like 300 pages, and there's a lot of double spaced, big letters, and all of that. Yeah, you can read it in a day. So yeah, it's beautiful. Now that was the wrap up for August. Let's go over quickly with the TBR for this month, which I already started 2 books. One is I'm reading it on Kindle. It is the Lolita by Nabokov. So I'm reading that, and I'm reading that because I bought the. I wanted to read this. This is in Spanish. Is Territorio Lolita, which this book analyzes the figure of this. I don't know how to say it in English. The nymphulas, which are these young women that corrupt the men. So yeah, it's an analysis on the figure and the exploitation of women, and the exploitation of that figure in our culture. So I don't know if this is translated or not, but yeah, it feels like a good book. Also, I'm reading, besides Lolita, I'm reading Physical Words of Radiance, as I said in the last video, and I'm almost done with it. I'm 1,000 pages in, which is crazy. And yeah, this is definitely better than the first book. The first book was a slog for me, man. It was too slow, and I actually, when I read it, I said I'm never gonna touch that series again. But I lied. I did touch it again, and I'm glad I did. The first book, actually, I read it 1 year ago. That's how much I didn't like the first book. But you know what? I decided to give it a chance, and yeah, I'm glad I did, because this is great. This is great stuff here. So yeah, the next ones are another one. Well, let me show you the fantasy and sci-fi first. So I'm going to start another series, which is the Magician series by Raymond Feist. The first trilogy is starts with this one, Magician Apprentice. It's fairly small book, like 400 pages, almost 5. And yeah, this is just classic fantasy from the 80s. Everyone's saying that this is great, so I decided to start it. Actually, I decided to start this because in an interview that they did with Henry Cavill, he recommended this author, and yeah, I don't know, man. It's just classic fantasy. And now getting to modern times, I'm going to read Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio, which I've been told that this is great fantasy, so sci-fi and fantasy book. He apparently he writes. He has a very good prose, and the sci-fi that he writes is great. So I'm going to give it a chance. This is part of the Sun Eater series. It's like 6 books long with a few novellas. This is the first one, Empire of Silence, and this version is around 750 pages. So yeah, she'll finish this in a week. I try to read 100 pages daily on physical. So yeah, and another one that I want to read is translated. It will be "She Only Speaks of Love" by Rey Loriga. The name in Spanish is "Ya Solo Habla de Amor." And this author, I discovered this author around a year ago, 2 years ago. He writes beautiful stories, man, about human relationships and the difficulty sometimes to sustain them. And they're really short. I mean, this book is like 150 pages. I mean, no, it's 170. But look at the page. It's like really small. The margins are too long. You can read this in a day, I believe. And yeah, last book that I wanna, and that's my gym book. I'm gonna read that at gym. Listen to it. It's it's by Neil Gaiman about the Norse gods. That's the one. That's a pretty short book as well. I believe it's like 6 7 hours. So yeah, should be reading that pretty easily. And yeah, that was the wrap up and the TBR. I hope I get to these books this month. It's going to be a busy month for me, um, due to work and also with some other stuff, family stuff. And yeah, that's it, man. See you on the next one. Bye bye.